Hey, what's up everyone? It's Richie, back with another video for the ARCA series. I didn't do one last week because obviously iRacing made an oops and released the ARCA car after an update with 800 horsepower. So yeah, it was quite a bit different experience with the ARCA car for a week. But they fixed it, then added a new Gen 4 variant to the ARCA car so that they can... Oh, actually, it was because basically it was a pretty good success with the 800 horsepower. Everybody kind of liked it, so they reverted the ARCA car back and gave everybody what they were asking for, which is an 800-pound kind of Gen 4 cup car. So anyway, we're back here again with the ARCA car, not the Gen 4 car. We're at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, which is the small track in Nashville, not the super speedway. So it's important to note that when you go and try to test this, that you use the right setup. The setup will be Nashville Oval, not the Nashville SS setup. The Nashville SS is for the super speedway, while the Nashville Oval is for the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. This session was partly cloudy, 78 degrees, 55% humidity, 2-mile-an-hour north wind, afternoon start time, and the track state is 30%. iRacing defaults as we always do. The garage settings are 12 to 1, -4 on the offset. We left the brakes at 64%. Some people say to go down to 62, but I found that when you did that, the car was getting way too loose getting in the corner. And with the car being as loose as it is off the corner, I felt like we did not want to make it any more loose in first part of the corner. So with that, let's take a lap around this track. I did a qualifying session with both doing a first lap and then doing the second lap, and I was within 100 to 2 either way. This particular session, I'm going to end up doing a second lap. So this first lap's kind of a throwaway where we're just trying to build some heat in the tires a little bit so that we can get power to the ground a little bit more on our second lap. But again, I was able to do something very, very similar on the first lap, when we were 100 to each other. However, this was faster than the first lap. So as you see, high in 3 and 4 as we normally do on that second lap, and then run down pretty close to the yellow line, but not all the way on the yellow line. I'll go over that more as we go, running through this qualifying lap to show you what it looks like, what it sounds like. There you go. So that is the qualifying lap at Nashville Super Speedway. Ran a 19.072. I believe I ran a 19.077 when I was able to do the first lap. So a couple things here. Rev limiters and loose off. You're going to kill the rev limiter here at Nashville Speedway Fairgrounds, and it's always going to be loose off. In fact, it's going to be loose off the entire run, and you're going to end up probably burning off your right rear tire here more than any other tire as you go through the run. I like the track. The track's got a lot of character to it. It's pretty symmetrical both sides, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So that's actually pretty unusual. So you run both sets of corners fairly close. So let's go back and dive into this second lap of qualifying. So as I mentioned, we go down the backstretch. This is after we got the green flag coming in for white flag. We're going to go down. We're going to stay to the top of the racetrack. You have to lift. You have to get out of the car. But we get able to get in the throttle a whole lot quicker down to this bottom and then back out like we normally would, which will give us a huge run down the front stretch. Then when we come down the front stretch, so Nashville, there are no markers at all around the racetrack. You're going to kind of need to start. I'm going to give you some markers to look at, but they're very difficult to kind of pay attention to a lap by lap basis as you go around the racetrack. So once you learn where these markers are and how the car sounds and how everything feels, you're going to have to start to learn how to drive this track by feel, not by markers, because again, there are no real markers. So first thing I'm going to tell you is we get down into one, you're going to want to start up here and then kind of head down this way or down this way into the corner, but we start to lift and brake when this red, the first red rectangle gets to this center post. That's when we start to brake, turn, and let off the gas down into the corner. We're going to go down. We're going to head towards the yellow line here, and then we're actually going to kind of diamond up to this first seam line right in the middle. But we're going to trail brake. On qualifying, you use about 25 to 35% brake initially, and then we trail brake all the way down to the center of the corner. We use a lot of wheel. You'll see that we use a lot of wheel here at the center of the corner. It's the nature of the beast here. So you'll see that we slide up. We're actually rolling through the corner here with no brake. We're up here with the car straddling the seam. We let it roll through the corner for a tick, then we start to pick up the throttle right around where this blue sign right here gets to the bar. When we pick up the throttle, we pick it up to about 50 to 60%, and that's it. Let it get to pick up speed, but you'll notice that my throttle is pretty consistent as we've come out through here, and I'm just driving off the corner. If you mash it at any particular point, you're going to get backwards loose. You'll see that I actually didn't become full throttle until I get to this blue sign right there. That's about where I start to hit full throttle, drive completely through and off the corner, I get loose, which is normal here. Get really loose right there, power through it, keep right on going down the straightaway. Loose is going to be the nature of the business for the day. It just is what it is. So now we come down here, start to turn in at the beginning of the Crosley sign right here. I'm going to use this window shield here basically as my marker. So start to turn in at the Crosley sign, and then we start to brake as the Crosley sign gets to the end of the Crosley sign. And again, very similar line. You're going to kind of come down the line here. You're going to gravitate in the middle of the corner to the first seam, and then you're going to come back down and off the corner and out of the corner. Same thing, you're going to go down, you're going to use 25 to 35% getting into the corner, and you're going to trail brake down into the center of the corner. Now, if you notice right there, I got loose going into the corner. That's why I didn't want to go any lower with the brakes, because if you went this 63, 62, 61%, that loose end gets even worse. So I felt pretty comfortable at 64%, and that's what I recommend. So again, you get down to the middle of the corner, we're straddling this first seam right there. Once we get to the middle, we get off the brakes and we roll through the center of the corner, and we roll through a little bit more in 3 and 4 than we do in 1 and 2. But we start to pick up the throttle when this window brace gets to the advanced auto parts, and much like 1 and 2, about 50 to 55, 60% throttle. Keep it partial throttle as you turn back down to the yellow line coming off the corner, and then so you get loose. Name of the game, loose here. You're gonna have to control that slide. We don't get full throttle until that telephone pole hides itself behind that window brace. And then we're going to drive up off the corner, get a little loose, not as bad as 1 and 2, and that is a qualifying lap at Nashville Speedway. So now that I've done a qualifying lap, let's take a look at the race lap. I did a 30-lap run, and you'll note that I'm kind of consistent over here, starting at a 19.2. With the fastest being a 1:40 on lap 3, because it does take 2 to 3 laps for the heat to build up in the tires enough to run faster. Lots of 3s and 4s. Then we get to 5s. That was a mess up there, which obviously happens. And then we slowly get to 20 flats around lap 30-ish. So you do tend to slow down as the run goes on. And as the car gets loose, you tend to lose the right rear more than you do the right front. So there's not a lot of difference in the race laps than there is in that qualifying laps that I just went over, except there are a couple of key differences. The first thing, obviously, we're up against the fence. It's pretty much the same line, same point, that red rectangle right there with the center post getting in the corner. One of the main differences that you'll find that you need to run in the race setup is in qualifying, we aim to kind of come down across this, not across, but right next to this yellow line, then up to the seam, and then we turn and go back to the yellow line coming off. Race-wise, while that first line is faster, it's much more treacherous, and it's very difficult to do that on a lap-by-lap basis, and as the tires start to wear out, the car gets pretty uncontrollable. So to counter that, what we're doing now is we're going in on this line on the seam, and we're going in on the seam. We're staying on the seam in the middle of the corner like we were, and then as we roll through and pick up the throttle, then we aim to go back down to the yellow line coming off the corner. So that is a major difference between the qualifying and the race setup. Again, qualifying, we aim for yellow, seam, yellow. Race, we do seam, yellow in the corners. But basically the same scenario, 25 to 35 brake, trail brake to the center of the corner, let it roll for a tick through the center of the corner, then pick up the throttle slowly to about 50 to 60%. Then we come off the corner. And same thing, you want to fight the loose if it happens, 50, 60% throttle. In qualifying, we were at full throttle at this particular point, at this blue sign right there. But race trim, we are not full throttle until right before this DW sign, after it's available for sponsorship sign. The reason for that is that we're going to kill the right rear. So the longer you can keep partial throttle, the better off your tires, your right wheel tire will be. It'll try to keep it a little bit cooler, because you won't overwork it by getting overly loose coming off the corner. You can see I'm not as loose as I was in that qualifying lap coming down the backstretch. So we're going to head down to the backstretch. We're going to start to turn in and then brake, basically at the end of the Crosley sign, just like we did in qualifying. We're going to float down, trail brake into, we're getting loose again, going into the corner. We're going to trail brake down to the center, and again, we are seam, yellow in 3 and 4 here, where we want to kind of go in on that seam in the middle of the car. We want to stay in the seam in the middle of the car. Then we want to kind of turn, kind of cross down to the yellow line coming off the corner. So trail brake to the middle of the corner. We're going to roll through the center of the corner. We're going to hit this Advanced Auto Parts sign with the window brace, start to pick up the throttle, 45 to 50% partial throttle. We're going to start to come down and get to that yellow line as quickly as good as we can to come off. And then again in qualifying, we were full throttle at that telephone pole at the windshield brace, which you'll notice on the race, we're a tick or two after the telephone pole. So that's the generic racing line here at Nashville Fairgrounds. So now, as the run goes on, you have to make a couple of adjustments as your tires start to go away. We're going to go to lap 38 now, which is, I think, the 9th or 10th lap of this particular run. That first lap was a 19.1. This lap is a 19.3. You'll see that we're a couple of tenths off. As we go around this lap, we're going to basically brake again at that red rectangle going in the corner. Then we're going to kind of come down into the corner. We're going to try to get the seam right here in the middle. We're going to try to keep it in the middle as we get to the center of the corner, trail braking down into it, rolling through, picking up again to 45 to 50%, and then turning to come down to the yellow line. Now, it's important to note that I'm doing that because, again, if you try to run completely on the yellow line in the race, as the race goes on, it's going to completely get loose and be completely uncontrollable. So what we're doing is we're trying to get the car to roll in on the top. I think there's a little bit more grip up there. And then as we make that turn off and come down across the racetrack, we're actually making that apex a tighter apex. Instead of being on the yellow line and then trying to turn the car coming off, you get loose. So what we're doing is we're coming in up here and then cutting across the yellow line, trying to make this a straight line, as opposed to making it a curved line if you were running on the yellow. So that is why we're running this line. You'll also note now that my full throttle is right around the available sponsorship sign, which is pretty much right around where we were for the first lap, or actually the third lap of the run that we just went over. Every time you go down, you want to get up as close to the fence as you possibly can. We're going to turn down to the Crosley. We're going to brake at the end of the Crosley sign. Again, 25 to 30% braking. Down to the middle. We're staying on the seam right here. We're rolling through. We're picking up the throttle at the advanced auto sign. 50 to 60% throttle. We're turning down to the yellow line here, off the corner. And you'll note now, we're full throttle. The telephone pole is all the way over here. So as the run goes on, our entry to the corner and the middle of the corner don't really change. Where we pick up the full throttle changes as the run goes on. And that's mainly because, again, we're loose, we're burning off the right rear, so we want to try to maintain as much right rear as we possibly can, so we get in the throttle later. We're able to get in the corner like we can every single lap, mainly because the later we get out of the preceding corner, the less speed we have at the end of the straightaway, which means we can actually get in the corner as hard as we can every single lap. So again, there it is. We come out and we go up to the fence, down the straightaway, and that is lap 10 at the race. Then we're going to come down to lap 58, which is pretty much, I think, lap 27 of the run. You're going to see we're going to come down. We're going to basically do the exact same line. We're going to go in, brake at the red rectangle there. We're going to float down into the corner. We're going to try to keep the car, the seam here. I actually went a little bit lower here than I've been going, but again, center corner on the seam. Pick up the throttle, partial throttle. It looks very similar to every other lap that we've done. Main difference now is full throttle happens. We get a little loose. Full throttle happens all the way here now, even further down on another billboard down here. We hit full throttle up to the fence, still fighting loose. As you can see, we are 27, 28 laps into the run here, and we still have the same tendencies that we've had all session long. Crosley sign, brake, down into the corner, trying to keep the seam right here in the middle of the corner, middle of the car, rolling to the middle of the corner, picking up the advanced auto sign. And again, you'll see that this late into the run, we're still going to get a little bit loose. And now full throttle doesn't happen until, well past the telephone. In fact, the telephone pole is now even off the screen, so you can see how much further we're not getting to full throttle. And we just follow through down the straightaway, and that's basically a lap, probably mid-run at Nashville Fairgrounds. So with that, again, your goal is to maintain your right rear. My tires at the end of this particular run were 97 on the left front, 92 on the right front, 94 on the left rear, and 87 on the right rear. And I do that with the middle of the tire right there. So 97, 92, 94, 87. You'll note that obviously this particular track and setup is loose, and you will kill that right rear. best way to try to combat that, again, is to not get full throttle too quickly. Try to get out of the corner. Make sure you're on the straightaway part or close to it before you get to full throttle, so that you can say that right there, not overheat it. So again, Nashville Super Speedway, lots of rev limiter. You're going to hit the rev limiter every lap for the entire run. Car is going to be wicked loose. Track itself is a lot of fun to drive. Very challenging. Lots of bumps. With it being loose off, makes it a real big challenge. So I hope everybody can have some fun at Nashville this week, or when you're running it in your league. And like, subscribe. Any comments, feel free to leave them. See you guys next week.